Design Board meeting for October 20th has started. We'll start with roll call.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll proceed with roll call. Vice Chair Sherry.
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti.
Yes.
Board Member Mosley.
Yes.
Chair Lewis.
Yes.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Okay. Next will be public comment. This is for general public comment on anything that's not on the agenda today.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for general public comment. However, if anyone wishes to make a comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so, and at this time, we will turn our attention to virtual attendance. And I do not see any hands raised for general public comment, and we did not receive any written correspondence for general public comment. So at that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
All right, thank you. Next is approval of the minutes from the full board meeting on October 6th. You can keep going down. Looks good. If you can keep going. Okay. The next item. You can keep going. Okay. I'll move to approve the minutes from the full board meeting on October 6th.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Board Member Graffiti.
Yes.
Board Member Mosley.
Yes.
Chair Lewis.
Yes.
Vice Chair Sherry.
Abstain, absence.
Motion passes.
Next, we have approval of the minutes from the consent meetings on September 29th and October 6th.
I have reviewed this. No comments if anybody else has. No. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the consent meeting September 29th.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Board Member Mosley.
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti.
Yes.
Chair Lewis.
Yes.
Vice Chair Sherry.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And that was for the 29th and the 6th, or just the 29th?
29th.
I believe, yeah, the motion was just for the 29th. So.
Okay, we can
Can we
review the
scroll down
6th.
to the minutes?
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, you can continue. Continue. Okay. And then can you continue to the comments for that item? Okay. Okay. I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
Okay, we'll take a vote. Board Member Moslehi?
Yes.
Board Member Gaffidy?
Yes.
Vice Chair Sherry?
Abstain. I have an item on that agenda.
Okay. Chair Lewis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next we have announcements, requests for continuance or withdrawals and future agenda items.
Yes, I do have one announcement. This is for a project at 226 Oliver Road. The case planner for planning case number 2025-00067 has scheduled their project for review in front of the Planning Commission on November 20th to grant approval for a coastal development permit. They have requested a volunteer from SFDB be present at the commission hearing for questions. The project was initially seen by the board on May 21st, 2025 for conceptual comments and continued to the staff hearing officer. The project includes an accessory dwelling unit and new additions to the existing residence, all of which now require a coastal development permit instead of just the accessory dwelling unit as we saw it. Please let me know if anyone is willing to attend the hearing to represent the board. And the hearing begins at 1 p.m. And again, that's on November the 20th. If I have any volunteers, you can let me know now or send me an email
We
later.
confirm afterwards.
Sure,
That's
will
okay.
do. Thank you.
Okay.
And that is it for general public comment.
Perfect. All right. Our first agenda item here is a continued item here for concept review. Staff, would you mind reading the description?
Sure. 1317 Los Alamos Place, here for conceptual review. Proposal to construct a new two-story, 2,818 square foot single unit residence, including a second floor deck and roof deck, an attached 469 square foot two-car garage, and a 733 square foot two-bedroom detached accessory dwelling unit with one uncovered required parking space. The ADU is exempt from SFTB purview. Project also includes landscape and hardscape improvements. The proposed total of 4,020 square feet of development on a 12,176 square foot lot is 100% of the required maximum floor to lot area ratio. It is 82% without the ADU. Review and approval of a coastal development permit for the ADU is required by the staff hearing officer. A ministerial coastal exclusion is required for their primary residence, garage, and all other site work. No final appealable decision will take place at this hearing. Neighborhood preservation findings will be required when the project is reviewed for project design approval. And the project was last heard on February 24th, 2025. And I believe we also have staff comments from the case planner, so I'll let him give those comments.
Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Stolberg, role assistant planner. The project is being presented here today for concept review of the main residence, garage, and other site work. The project was previously reviewed by this board on February 24th. The main residence is a ministerial coastal development permit, so this project does not require any continuance to a staff hearing officer. There is an accessory dwelling unit proposed as part of the project, which requires a coastal development permit because it is located in the coastal zone. The ADU itself is not under design review purview, but the main residence, garage, and other site work are. Staff is looking for thoughts on aesthetic appropriateness, particularly in relation to the upper roof deck, massing, and visual weight of the structure, and to specifically comment on if the project is ready to proceed to design approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The applicant can come forward. And as a part of your presentation, if you can make sure to go through the old minutes and any changes that have occurred since we last saw the drawings. You'll have 15 minutes. Oh, and if you can both, make sure your microphones are on and state your names for the record.
Great. Thank you, Chair Lewis. My name is Liz Hughes, presenting for Tom Moxon Architect.
I'm Robert Richards, landscape architect.
So I'll read through the old minutes. Okay. The board generally appreciates the aesthetic of the proposed residence. The applicant modify the front elevation to reduce the visual weight of the massing on the right side of the property facing the street by reducing the size and/or screening with landscape or architectural elements. 3, provide an existing streetscape view from the same angle as the proposed plans and provide an updated streetscape that shows the proposed landscaping and any adjustments to fences. 4, modify the roof railing as it is visible from the street to help reduce the visual impact from the street. 5, the applicant provide a site section or rendering from San Nicolas Avenue and Shoreline Drive near 105 or 109 San Nicolas to help understand the height of the balconies and roof deck from those properties. 6, the board would like to see screening of some sort in plantings or fencing around the adjacent properties, especially near the lower portion of the property. 7, the board finds the proposed height to be reasonable, especially given the 9-foot first floor plate height and the 8-foot second floor plate heights. 8, the board recommends modifying the amount of hardscape visible from the front street to help reduce the visual massing between the hardscape and the building. 9, the board encourages the applicant to discuss discussions with adjacent neighbors. Okay, so we have a lot of changes here as part of the revised design set. So I'll try and go through those somewhat quickly. We have some updated renderings of the front, and if you remember from the last hearing, I'm going to pull up those to showcase the difference here. It was a concern with the massing over the entry and the visible railing from the street, and so we studied various different options, and we actually have another page dedicated to all of the options that we looked at as part of this design exercise. And so where we ended up was a shed-type roof coming off towards the top of the guardrail there to minimize visibility of that element and try and bring the visual massing down. We also made an adjustment to the massing along the right side of the property. I'll go back to the old plans for this view as well. We had the second floor popping out on both sides by about a foot or a foot and a half. And so on this side, we have a shed roof breaking down that massing. And then on the other side, it's just a one portion that's the only portion in the building where we have a 2-story wall surface. Everything else is broken down in massing. Our photo studies of the neighboring properties, and we can come back if you have questions or want to see anything else more specifically. Some aerial photos of the existing house, more aerial photos of that house. And I think Robert can also present on the landscaping, but what we did as part of this, as we started to develop the landscaping more, was to look specifically at screening between the neighbors, particularly where second story or roof decks may affect privacy of the neighboring properties. And so that's part of this presentation as well. So this is the requested streetscape of the existing and the proposed. That was one of the comments from the previous letter. And then we also have the updated fence and some of the proposed trees along this property line here, which provides some screening for that 2-story portion of the building along the right side. So this is a diagram from San Nicolas showing the view towards the property. And what's in red there is kind of like the ghosted in outline of the building. And you can see there's already some existing tree screening there, partially, which will be partially removed as part of this permit. And so for our proposed image down here, we're showing some of that, the proposed screening as well. So you can see you just get like a little peek of the building when you're looking through the empty space there at that driveway. And then from shoreline, you really can't see it at all because the buildings are fairly high and the property is set so far back from the street that you would not be able to see it from shoreline. So these are the exhibits that we prepared about the screening between the neighboring properties. We did receive some letters from the neighbors about some potential privacy issues, and so we looked into that in quite some detail. And so what we did was we actually created a conceptual model of a lot of the houses around the project site to try and get an understanding of the elevation between those properties and this site, and areas that would potentially require more screening than others. There are some established hedges and planting both on the project property and the neighboring properties. So there is some existing screening already there, but then particularly between 109 San Nicolas was what we primarily focused on as part of our revised design here. And that's what you can see here are these trees that we're planting between 1317 Los Alamos and 109 San Nicolas. This view here is from the neighboring property at 116 San Nicolas, which is over here to the side. And there's actually a really tall existing hedge there, so you don't really see much past that existing hedge. And then this is looking from the property towards the neighboring properties. So from the second story deck, looking towards 109 San Nicolas here, looking this towards the pool area. And that was why we planted this row of trees along this edge to provide privacy for that backyard. And then also from, I think, let's see. Oh, that's the second story deck. Okay, the master balcony. Yeah, and then pointed the other direction, so towards the other neighboring property. These are the studies that we prepared to see what options we were looking at. We actually, before we came in for the last review, had something that was kind of like this, but we felt the railing was too visible, and so we have a lot of other studies kind of showing our attempts to minimize the railing, and I think we like where we ended up with the design. I'll let Robert present, but I just wanted to say another one of the changes to the site design was actually, we had, I believe, a turnaround area in the front yard, and so by removing that and then providing some additional landscaping, we're softening that presentation to the street. And per our previous discussion, at the last hearing, we actually pulled, the building is actually set back quite a ways from the street, partially due to the shape of the lot, it being a pie-shaped lot that's kind of opening to the back. We wanted to minimize the appearance along the street frontage and also get the living room area kind of in the middle of the site. So I'll let Robert present his landscape design here.
Okay, so I'll kind of focus on the changes here. So as Liz was talking about at the driveway got reconfigured, and then there was a comment in there to try to get more landscaping in around the driveway. So we've really tried to kind of carve out as much planting as possible in the driveway area. The hardscape, we're using permeable pavers, and then there at the entry where you walk in towards the house. We're trying to use a flagstone path that kind of has like a hint of the flagstone set into the permeable paver. So we're trying to kind of break up the driveway using the two different materials there. Another change that's happened here is there was a wall introduced at the courtyard there that comes into the entry, and so the wall is going to be an opportunity to introduce some planting, possibly on the wall, and getting planting around it. So that's another method of kind of softening the entry. In the rear of the house, we adjusted the retaining walls, and that was to try to get as much space down around the ADU as possible. So now there's kind of continuous space to maneuver around the backside of the ADU, which we didn't have before. The ADU has also been pulled away from the property line to allow us to get a hedge in all the way along that kind of sensitive neighboring edge there. So there's, maybe Liz, if you could just kind of go up and down there where that new hedge is.
Oh, yeah,
so-
this area here. Yeah,
so-
so we pulled the ADU about a foot further away from the property line here. So I think it's about 5 feet from the property line. That allowed us to plant the hedge along there.
So, yeah, and then in addition to the hedge, up to the north of kind of that corner right there, there's an existing large yucca, and then we're introducing 4 trees, proposes Laurus, like a Laurus Saratoga, which is kind of like a medium-sized tree. The idea was to layer in a tree with the hedge to kind of help buffer, views up towards the house. And then I think that kind of covers it all.
Yeah, and then we just have a lot of other documentation about some of the existing landscaping, what's being demolished, what's staying, and then the planting material. And Robert could answer any of your questions about
Yeah, the
that.
planting is what was presented before, and there wasn't any concern about it at that time. Then maybe go to the bottom, the last sheet. There's kind of a study here of the existing screening material around the, the neighboring edges of the property and what's remaining and what's, being replaced. So we try to, as much as possible, document what needed to stay in place and then introduce the new hedge and trees where it was sensitive there against the neighbor. So.
And then I'm just going to go back to, let's see, we'll just go through the rest of the set here, covering all the updates. So this is the site plan with the updated landscape, and I'm going to zoom in on that ADU, even though it's not part of design review. So the ADU is, looks like 5'6" from, here, 5 feet at the closest, because it's not exactly parallel to the corner of the property line. So at the closest, it's 5 feet, and the upper portion, it's 5'6". And then our plans again. And so this is the master deck off of the second story. And so our goal as we develop the massing of this property was to follow the design guidelines by keeping that deck at a minimum of 15 feet from the adjacent property, and it's currently 15'8", and that's to the exterior face of the wall, so you'll actually be standing in a little bit further from that. And then our roof deck here, and I'm going to go back to the roof deck diagram as well, just to show the distance between the roof deck and the neighboring properties. But the idea here was to locate it as close to the middle of the property as possible to minimize any privacy concerns for the neighbors. And then this is our ADU plan, updated elevations. So showing the shed roof along the front, the new roof at the entry, and then we have this covered deck that's wrapping around the lower level of the building to break up the massing along that side. And then, as I mentioned previously as part of the presentation, this is the only portion of the building that has a a vertical two-story face. Everything else is broken up. And so this is about 20 feet wide and is actually pulled away from the neighbor to allow for the parking for the ADU. We also have a few sections here through the building, details, and I'm just going to go back up to that diagram. So this diagram here, where we were looking at the views from the neighboring properties, we were being sensitive, particularly this area of the mesa. As you know, a lot of people have upper story decks, and so as we develop the placement of those upper level decks, being sensitive to locate those as far from the property lines as possible. 30 feet 4 along this side, 48 feet 11 between, that's the roof deck and San Nicolas, and then 87.3 to 105 San Nicolas, 66 it looks like, or about 67, and then 33 on the other side. So really trying to find a central location for that and the massing of the building. And as you know, this lot is kind of unique because it's basically a two-tiered lot. So half of the lot is up at the elevation of Los Alamos Place, and then the other half of the lot where the proposed ADU is at the elevation of San Nicolas Avenue, which then starts to kind of slope up. So the massing of the main residence is all on the Los Alamos side, and then the massing of the ADU broken up and kept down on the San Nicolas side. And
We have about 2 minutes remaining.
yeah, and I think that pretty much concludes our presentation, but I just wanted to also mention, they said at the beginning of the presentation, the main house is at 82% of the FAR, and so the ADU brings us to 100%. And then our goal for this project was to keep the roof height about, I think we're pretty close to 25 feet off of grade, and so that was our goal, to minimize the massing as much as possible, as well as, keeping that two-story portion of the house as far away from the property lines as possible. So the garage is a one-story, as well as a good portion of the second floor that's facing the northerly property line for the solar access requirements. And then this, for the parking, also kept about 15 feet away from the property line. And that concludes our presentation.
Okay, thank you. We will move to public comment.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this particular project. If anyone wishes to make a comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so. So we are now going to turn our attention to virtual attendance. And at this time, I do not have any hands raised for virtual comment. And we did receive a written correspondence from from Carrick Brown on this particular project. So at that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
Thank you. We will move to questions from the board. Board Member Sherry, do you want to start?
Yeah, I had one question about do you have a visual of the pavers meeting the flagstone, just what that looks like, and the finished schedule?
It's kind of illustrated on the site plan. The idea
No, I
is,
saw that. I just was wondering what it looks like, just,
Oh, it's to the side. There you go.
the idea is to kind of use like a stone
there
band
it is.
between the paving and the permeable
and
pavers.
then with the cleared band defining the flagstone to the,
Yeah, so it use it to separate the two materials. So use like a rectangular
yeah.
piece of the flagstone as a border.
And then, can you go back to the minutes one more time really quickly? And you didn't reach out to any of the neighbors?
We sent out a letter by mail to the neighbors, but we, as far as I know, didn't get any direct responses. The only correspondence that I've seen is the letter that the neighbor submitted to the city.
But you-
And so we made an attempt to address that, but we didn't speak directly with any of the neighbors.
What did the letter say?
It just said, reach out to us if you have any
Oh,
questions
okay,
or
good.
concerns.
Okay, thanks, that's it.
Board Member Graffiti?
What's the height of the entry wall proposed at the front?
I believe it's 4 feet. It's just to keep
it's
pets
4 feet.
Yeah,
inside.
great. And then roof height, I think you just mentioned around 25 feet at the highest point. Mm-hmm. And then where does the finished floor of the roof deck start, I guess, in relation to that height?
Okay. Okay, so, let's see. Top of roof, and then our railing is a little bit further above the top of the roof, but we're well under 25 feet here. So we're about 23 feet to the top of the roof, and then, maybe another 8 or 9 inches to the railing.
That's helpful. And then can you just do a quick side-by-side of I think you had all the images as you studied the railing and how you resolved the entry, but do you have a side-by-side of the new proposed versus what you had in the last plan?
Of a 3D view or
Yeah,
an
just
elevation?
I think, well, you had I guess
Yeah.
it's a render, yeah.
Okay, oops, another one.
You'd shown like pictures of different options that you'd studied. That's what I'm
Oh,
looking
sure.
for.
Yeah,
Okay,
this
there we go.
one's more like a sketch version
Okay.
of that. And this was actually one down here, the one that we were thinking of moving forward with. But we ended up with this because we thought the horizontal nature of the roof concealed the railing better.
Okay. Great. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Board Member Mosley?
Yeah, sure. Now that we're here, have the middle part, that it's now horizontal roof, the elevation hasn't changed, the plate height, but the roof from the pitch roof has become horizontal, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
It hasn't changed.
Okay, then I have a couple of other questions related to the question that Board Member Sherry mentioned. The flag, I think like that was like a visual thing in the renders, that the flagstone, when it comes to the driveway, it seems like it's the same material as the driveway in the renderings, but
I don't
it's
think the
flagstones.
rendering
Okay,
accurately represents it, so it would be permeable pavers and like the field of the driveway. And then right there, you could see that kind of circular
Yeah.
area right before the gate, that would be in flagstone.
and the band is stone as well?
Correct.
Okay. Couple of questions. The gutter, at some places I saw that it's like copper, but in a material board it
I
mentioned
think
it was
it's
like
going to be
painted
aluminum. I
brown?
think it'll end up being, yeah.
the brown one?
Yes.
Okay. So that was one. And can you confirm that the roof is two-piece clay tile and not a
Yes.
S? Okay. And I think that was all my questions.
Okay.
Oh, I have one more on the landscape. So there was one plan that shows that some of the, maybe one or some of the yucca trees are being removed. Can you show which one? And like
Yeah, so
because in the public comment that we received, the neighbor comment was like, those are removed, but I see that some of them are existing to remain.
So at the previous hearing, we were proposing to remove the yucca that's in that corner, but
Okay.
we're now retaining that yucca. So that's the one that will remain. The others
Okay.
are in conflict with the ability of like grading that hill there, so there's no way to retain them.
Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I just want to appreciate all the work that went into the graphics to illustrate to us and answer all the comments that the board had. I think the 3D modeling of the neighbors was extremely helpful, and I hope that they are able to see this either on the recording or meet with you separately, that I feel like you've significantly screened their view of the residents and have worked really hard to consider that around on all of your neighbors' side. And I think that overall, it's still in keeping with the general size, bulk, and scale. I'll be curious to hear from the board their thoughts on the railing from the street view, but I think that it's in keeping with what we have recommended to other homeowners, and I think that the shed roof is successful in just keeping that, seeing the small handrail. I think breaking up the two-story with the shed roof helps, and the significant plantings, especially reducing the driveway, helps a lot in the visual mass of all of the hardscape. We'll hear from the board. Board Member Sherry?
I agree. I think it's a nice project, and I appreciate your sensitivity to the privacy and the site design and the general mass, bulk, and scale. And I would just, a small little thing, I would prefer just the driveway be one continuous. I think the gate itself signifies the entryway, and I'm not sure you need that, trying to resolve that issue of flagstone meeting pavers, and I think it would be cleaner if you didn't, that's whatever you want.
Oh, fair enough.
But I like the project very much. Thanks, guys.
Agreed. Thank you so much for all the updates. Very supportive of the project. I think modest heights, keeping it at 23 feet and under, where you've placed the roof deck over 30 feet from bordering neighbors, and just the modest size of it. I agree. I think it would be cleaner to remove the flagstone portion from the driveway, and you do have the prominence of the entry with the gate and the wall, as Board Member Sherry mentioned. But overall, I think it's a great project and excited for it to move forward.
Agree with all the comments that was made, and we really appreciate all the details that went to the, like, studying from the neighbor views and all the different options. The study options, like, will help us a lot to just figure out visually what's best for the project. And I think the railing is very minimal, and it's the best solution that could be done here. And it's very cohesive from the street view, and it's a very strange site shape, and I think, like, it's visually broken down a lot with the landscape and has been softened a lot. One minor idea is that, and it's to applicant to study, if there's a stone introduced in the front view of the street view, I agree that, like, the driveway, it's better to be, like, consistent, that little flagstone just, like, out of nowhere here, but the wall, the 4 feet wall, could be a stone, and it could be a, like, continuous wainscot in the 2-story level, but that's an option. I really appreciate, like, the more minimal option as well as is, but if, like, a stone component is introduced, maybe is a stronger move will be, like, the entry wall. And I think that's it. I think it's a really nice project for the neighborhood that has been introduced.
The other thing I didn't comment on, but I love the planter up on the second story, I think helps with that large mass of wall.
Yeah, very charming.
Yeah. Would anyone like to make a motion? Okay. The other comment I'll add is I do think that the project is ready for project design approval and final approval combined. Okay. I move to continue this project indefinitely to the full board for project design approval and final approval. The board is in agreement that the size, bulk, and scale of the project is appropriate to the neighborhood, and that the cohesive design of the site works well. The board appreciates the screening and layering of planting that helps to mitigate any concerns of privacy from the roof deck and the second floor deck, as well as these decks meeting the single-family design board guidelines for distance from property lines. The board thinks the gate alone signifies the entry path and does not think a separate denoting material is necessary on the driveway. The end of my motion.
I'll second the motion.
And I just wanted to ask if Chair Lewis, if you wanted to consider the project for continuance to consent, or if you wanted to see it at the full board.
I'm okay with either. I'm open from the board. It seems like there might be neighbor public comment, and so I'm okay with it continuing to the full board unless any other board members feel strongly.
Whatever the maker of the motion recommends.
Excellent. Thank you all.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sherry,
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti,
Yes.
Board Member Mosley.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
And right on time, look at that, exactly 3:40.
Oh, wow.
And our next item is here for, it's a new item here for concept review, 945 Coyote Road.
And
Oh, are you able to read?
Yes.
Ah,
yeah,
thank
I can
you.
read it right now. Let me bring it up. Oh, it's all good. Thank you. This is Project 945 Coyote Road. It's here for conceptual review. It's a new item. It hasn't been seen by the board before. The project is proposing a new 5,535 square foot two-story home on a vacant lot with a one-story detached 800 square foot accessory dwelling unit. The ADU is not under purview of the board currently. A new pool, spa, and tree plantings are proposed. 4 coastal live oaks and 2 pepper trees are proposed for removal, and other trees will be impacted by the proposed home as well. 21 cypress trees are proposed along Coyote Road. The total proposed 5,535 square feet on a 95,832 square foot lot is 98% of the maximum guideline floor area ratio. No final appealable decision will take place at this hearing, though neighborhood preservation findings, hillside design district and slope lot findings, grading findings, and vegetation removal findings will be required when the project is reviewed for project design approval. And I did have staff comment on this one before we open the item. So as project description states, 945 Coyote Road is just here for broad feedback, conceptual comments on the mass, bulk, scale, and siting of the project. Staff has not found the project compliant with city regulations yet, and the applicant is aware that inconsistencies will need to be addressed for board approval. After this hearing, the project will require further staff review and will require at least one other hearing prior to approval. And I also wanted to note that the applicant provided some additional supplemental material that was not posted on the agenda, but the extra sheets didn't appear to be changing the total scope of work and were just different iterations of the same scope. And so you'll be seeing them here today for the first time, as well as some video files. So with that, I'll hand it back over to you, Chair Lewis. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If the applicant can come forward. Staff will be pulling up your drawings, and you'll have 15 minutes to present. If everyone that's at the desk, if you can make sure that the microphones are on and that you state your names for the record before you begin. And then I just wanted to say that the video files are here in the folder. So when you want to get to them, just make sure you click the little folder down here and open them up individually and then close out after they pop up. So they're there for you. All right, there you go.
Thank you. Hi, how are you? Hi. name is Roberto Noriel, the principal of Nari Associates. Thank you. I will repeat. My name is Norberto Nori, is the principal partner of Nari Associates. And on my side, left side, is Vigan Kachatorian, our senior project manager. So, to describe this process was super exciting for us, not only to have a chance to work in Santa Barbara, but as well to try to understand how to deal with a project of this location and prominent views, et cetera, et cetera. So I will address first what we can call some design principles that we consider when we work in this project. Number one, the property is located in a sort of, it's a large property, located in elevated, in a high elevation, with incredible views looking to the ocean, and way above any of the existing neighbors' houses. So one of the issues that we immediately realized is that there was not an option to block any views. But this is almost a positive freedom when you are designing a building of this size. But anyway, we took in high consideration what we can call the neighborhood compatibility. And one of the first things that we try to do is to see how our design was considering what happened with the surrounding neighborhood. And maybe if you can show the video.
Sure.
The first video is we drew a drone. We flew a drone, we drew a drone, and all over the area to try to understand what happened with the surrounding places. And you can see very distant, lower elevation existing houses. The closest one is the one that is a dome right across the street on the other side, but in a lower elevation from our side. So the main access to this property is Coyote. But anyway, following that idea of neighborhood compatibility, to protect the neighbor's privacy, we even proposed it in our design to create with vegetation and using the opportunity of the existing topography to minimize the connection or the visual connection of invading the privacy of our neighbors. Going to the architectural language, one of the things that we try to understand, and I think that I've been happy that I've been teaching architecture for many years, is what is Santa Barbara means on its history, and how whatever we are proposing here, as well as the neighborhood compatibility, it was an opportunity to understand that could be a connection with the long tradition of Santa Barbara associated with its colonial architecture and some components that are related to how architecture is expressed and visualized in buildings and forms. So I would like to show what we call inspirational images. The images that we refer to are some of the, we select the idea of the vault. Number one, because the vault is very much connection with the Spanish architecture of the 1400 and the 1500. And therefore, we thought that the arches, the vaults, were something connected with the history of Santa Barbara, not only definitely through the existence of the mission, but as well with other components that had been developed throughout the years. I think that one of the issues that we consider as well, that all the exterior finishes of this house are using muted colors. Why? probably the main reason is the surrounding scenery, the incredible potential open spaces, the idea to integrate the house with the potential surrounding proposed landscape was a great opportunity where the houses will be in a more low-key, harmonious dialogue with the surrounding landscape. And that's what we are proposing as well as the design. The other issue in design premises was to articulate masses. Instead of creating a larger defined mass for the entire house, we break down the masses of the house, almost creating a sense of a European village and allowing to walk through the place and experience for different locations and different point of view the incredible opportunity of this fantastic view that the house and the property has to the valleys, to the hills, and to the ocean. If you can show the video, I will appreciate it. I think of the music, as you know, is the concert of Aranjuez, which is a kind of an evocation to the Spanish connection of this architecture. Happened that in addition to be an architect, I'm a musician today, so my connection with, when we put the music to this video, actually was a kind of a personal caprice. I said, I need to put music to something here, and that's what we inserted.
Over the landscape plan?
Yes. Thank you, Vegan. One of the fundamental issues associated with this, the presence of the vaults, it has to do as well with one challenge that this site has. It's located in a fire zone. So we are proposing as a construction method to use concrete. All the vaults will be put in place concrete with finishes already incorporated to the surfaces of the vaults, ensuring that at least we are going to diminish the potential dangers of a fire like happened in this area many years ago. As a matter of fact, the actual owner is the same owner that he lost his house in this property many years ago. So he's highly sensitive about what is going to happen with the future house that he's planning to reconstruct. So the process of using concrete and using a modular system that would allow to alter the different locations of these vaults without being, articulating the masses is one of the reasons as well they have been selected as not only as a construction system, but as an architectural form. In terms of the landscape, this is one of the supplemental information that Sebastian was referring to. And you can see here that the site is connected. The landscape is super prominent in this area, terracing down throughout the site, taking advantage of the different level of elevation. Fortunately, because of the location of the house, and probably because of the fire, we are not challenged by the presence of preserved species. It's exactly where the house will be located, with the exception of 2 trees that are proposed to be relocated. The oak trees are outside. There are 2 or 3 oak trees outside of our property. Where we are proposing to build the house. The overall height of the house is the maximum allowed height is 30 feet. The highest point of one of the vaults is 23. So we are way below the allowed height proposed for the site. When I was talking about the access, you can see right there the different positions of the vaults. They are not always of the same height. In other words, we are not only they are articulating the mass, but as well as creating this more dynamic dialogue where we are proposing as a surrounding landscape. The landscape, as I said before, that was showing on the plans, one of the modifications that we did in our regional design, and that's part of the supplemental information, was in one moment where we are planning to create a sort of an outdoor music space. And then we revisited that concept, thinking that probably will be something that the surrounding community may consider that it was not the best use of the space. So we converted that area in a terracing view seating where, there are not a space for a potential amphitheater that was initially shown in our first presentation. So we are already reviewing, that's part of the supplemental
So you
component
have
that we
about
are
2
adding
minutes
today.
remaining.
2 minutes.
Yes. I would like to say that that the whole project has been conceived as a strong interaction in between the built spaces and the outdoor spaces. The interior architecture that you show some images in our video is more in the contemporary expression, while the outside, that's where we are using muted colors, is very subtle, is very more passive and tranquil. And I think with this one, I end our presentation. And please, I'm more than open to receive any question.
All right, if you need it later, you have about 1.5 minutes, and we're going to move to public comment.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with in-person public comment. I do have several slips for us to go through. First, we'll have Mr. John Pedersen. If you could please approach the podium, you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Oh, sorry, if you don't mind, at the wood podium.
Oh,
over there.
yeah, go ahead and, approach the podium here, and then as you begin, state your name and your address where you live, just so we can have an idea of how close you are to the project.
My name is John Peterson, and we're just up the street. We're at 955 Coyote Road. And I've got just sort of some real concrete, you might say, questions and comments about it. Specifically, I noticed that you changed the driveway. As it is now, we share a driveway with 945, and it's always been a situation where, so that we don't have to back out into into Coyote Road to get out of there, we've backed into each other's driveways in order to get out, and that's something that we would maintain. We would like to maintain, of course. Looking at your proposal, I noticed that you've changed the driveway, you've eliminated the driveway, and I'm wondering how far does that driveway that it exists now go into the plan so that we will have some room to back out of our driveway so that we won't have to back out into the Coyote Road traffic, which is extreme. We're in an S curve right there, and cars come down there. They're going up the street. It's almost a straightaway for about 250 yards, so people really gain some speed coming there. In fact, as we pull into our driveway to turn left every time, it's kind of one of those say a little prayer and turn left as prudently as you can. And to back out into something like that would be it'd be difficult every time. Now, I have a map here of the existing, I don't know if I can present this to you.
You can bring it up here, we can put it on the screen. You have about 20 seconds remaining.
I'll try to speak fast.
City TV, could you please zoom in on the photo on the table?
A line there which represents, I think, I wish I could point to it so that I could tell you what I'm talking about.
Are you able to switch from the timer to what's on my screen?
It's already on the overhead, but you need to click off the.
Well, anyway, I'd like to know how far that driveway would go in. Oh, okay.
Sorry, 1 second. We're dealing with some technology. You'll still have your 30
It's my
seconds.
There it is.
There we go.
It's kind of a problem because oftentimes when you see plot lines, our lot line, I don't think is accurately represented in that. That's
Apologies, but if you could speak into the microphone so we can capture.
That's probably something that was generated by Zillow, for instance. And I, with a blue pen, have drawn more like where I think it should be. And in fact, when I looked at the plans that the architect had drawn up, it looked to me like we would have probably quite a ways into the existing driveway before their construction would start. I'd like to know
Thank you.
how far that is.
Okay, perfect.
For
Thank you.
safety's sake, among other things.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next, we'll have Mary Carmody. Please approach the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
It's over here. You can just make a diagram. You're not invading the direct.
I'm Mary Carmody. I'm at 955 Coyote, directly next door. And we're a little bit concerned with the discussion that they are going to take down some trees, particularly a large, very developed, mature oak tree, pretty close to our property line. And also, we understand that you are going to be putting cypress trees up, but for some reason, they don't seem to be shown on our side. Don't understand why that is. So again, in addition to the input of the driveway, we're concerned with the landscaping, and specifically why there wouldn't be the cypress trees on our side, as well as the existing oak tree, which we hope is not one that's to go down. Okay, thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Next, we'll have Seth Olitsky.
I'm not going to comment on the aesthetics, but I
Oh,
think
sorry,
that you
Seth,
should
if
drive
you-
through the neighborhood and see if that house really fits. I'm Seth Olitsky. I live at 950 Coyote Road in a modest single-story rebuild after the T fire. I've been through the fire. After the fire, my neighbors at 940 were allowed to build an 8,000 square foot, 3-story house, which ruined much of my views. The 945 lot is directly down view from my yard. In fact, you could see my house in one of the videos. If you're going to allow a 2-story residence for 945 Coyote, then I would request that story poles are put up as part of the approval process. After they are in place, someone from the board should come and view them from the property and determine if my views are now completely gone and the value of my house decreased significantly. Finally, regarding the 21 cypress trees. I don't know if you know this, they are highly flammable, and they're only going to add to the fuel load. Remember, it's always fire season in Santa Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I do not have any further slips. However, if you wish to make a comment, please fill one out and bring it to me. Now we will turn our attention to virtual comment. And for this project, I do not see any hands raised virtually. And we did receive written correspondence from a Mr. Ed Boersma on this project. So at that, I will turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
Okay, thank you. And next, it's time for the board to ask questions, and I will start us with a few. If you can, either on this site plan or probably the one that's a little bit further zoomed out. There you go. Show us where the existing driveway is versus the proposed.
So the existing driveway is on this corner, which is what the gentleman was talking about. So we're proposing it on the far end over here. We would have to provide an overlay to see exactly where that cross-section is. But if we go to the aerial, so this was the shared driveway. This was the original driveway here, coming in here. So we're proposing it here, actually, which is much gentler to come onto the site. So we can provide an overlay here just to show where that,
But there would be no changes there to that tan
the-
region that's on their property.
no.
Okay.
How far it goes into there based on the property line, because if we are going to put a 4-foot fence there, I guess that's the diagram we need to provide.
Sure. Okay.
Excuse me, and I will add something to that too. Our access fence or gate is kind of a very good distance from the edge of Coyote.
That's my
Coyote
next
Road.
question. So that's great. Actually, if you could go to the site plan to show us that.
Yes, and you can see that we are,
We did have a diagram somewhere here.
because I think that this gentleman expressed a concern that I potentially possible, if we are backing up directly inside of Coyote, could be a traffic conflict or whatever you name it. It's not the case. You can see right there the edge of our property in relationship with the curve of Coyote Road.
How many feet is that between the gate and the street?
I would say that probably around 20, 25,
Okay. And then
because the width of that road is 20, so I would say that probably is 20, 24.
if you go to A201, what is the gray region versus the, I'll call it a bricked region, that as you come in through the gate? There you go. That.
So the gray region is just pervious asphalt, and that's going to the garage. So the garage is on the left of the drawing. So you're coming down to here. So this is the two-car garage here, covered here. So again, the challenge that we're having on this site is the further we go out, the steeper the building becomes, the higher the walls become. So we're trying to find a balance between cutting through, pushing the building further into the grade and reducing the amount of excavation. And then this here would be the main turnaround for the parking for the building. So the covered two-story, if we go to here, so this is at the lower level. So the lower level also includes a garage and a suite on the bottom level.
Okay.
And the proposed ADU is also here. So we have parking for there too.
Which is in a lower elevation as well.
Correct.
Okay, and then can you tell us, and maybe it was in the description, the total number of trees to be removed? And then I see approximately 55 new trees. So how many to be removed again?
I think we need to do the
math.
let's look at the arborist report to
Okay.
see the final total.
Yeah, and through the chair to the applicant, the arborist report that you guys provided in the last review is there in the file if you want to bring it up. I did just want to clarify that, again, that this project, we haven't deemed it complete, and what we're viewing now, it's still under review, but, staff needs more information on the site plans and the landscaping as well for accuracy and to make sure that, we're following proper tree replacements and other CEQA considerations. So,
Okay.
again, we're just here for really broad conceptual comments, and we're going to be requesting tree replacements and ensuring that those are followed through with. So, yeah, just want to provide that context. Thank you.
Sorry, I was reading the 55 trees came from the next applicant. I apologize. Okay,
They
that's
don't specify
helpful.
how many.
Okay, so we'll address that later then about the trees. And then if you can clarify what the setbacks are from the building to the road along the side. So we have, is that the ADU at the bottom
Yes,
right
here.
that we're looking at?
Right.
Okay.
So so ADU, the setback was 5.
Okay, and that one's outside of our purview. The other one then is
So the
on the
setbacks are
property line. Mhm.
35 at the front, so
Okay.
35 from there, and 15 at sides.
15 at the side there, okay. And then the height of the wall along the driveway that slopes down to the garage, what's the height from the grade there, and how much lower is that from the street?
So, okay. What do we got here? We got 633, I think it's about, and 620, so it's about 13, 14 feet. To get,
Lower.
yeah.
Okay.
This level to get lower. And we did talk with Sebastian in length on, obviously you can't have more than, I think we have a section here showing that. 7.5 feet within setbacks.
Yeah, correct. So the applicant and I, when we were looking at this project, we're reviewing minor zoning exception and possible modifications
You can
required
see
for
the-
wall heights and setbacks. But again, we're still waiting to get all of that completed for the board's review. But staff really wanted to get this design in front of the board just because of how big the home is and where it's located on the site and the design style. So, yeah. Anyways, I'll leave it up to the
Okay.
applicant.
But I
Thank you,
think this
Chair.
is helpful, that the idea is that the wall would not stick out taller above grade, above
no.
closer to the drive. It
Correct.
all sinks down to
Correct.
get you closer to it.
You can see in
Okay.
the section right where that property line is. So we're trying to get right maybe a foot above existing grade, and then maintain the 7.5 and then 5 foot offset 7.5, so you don't get just massive soil nail wall against the property line.
Okay. And I know that this is early conceptual, but it seems that the main arches are stone. There's an underside that's aluminum. Is that uplit and reflective, or what's the decision there with the aluminum on the underside?
Well, the whole idea to have an interiors and exteriors that were as well fireproof. It was the selection of an anodized aluminum. Could be, we are reanalyzing the color of that anodized aluminum. One of the ideas is to match, to blend more with the color, the muted color that we are selecting for the vaults. But remember what I said before, we try to maintain a more classic way with exteriors, but still, I have to admit my personal sin. I am a repentant modernist. So even that my office is the oldest office in Southern California, no office, building, because it was built, no, not the oldest, but it was built in as of the first gas station on car depot in Route 66. It's in Monrovia. I love history, but as well, I am a contemporary designer. So the interiors are modern, the exteriors are much more refined and classical. So that, what you are asking for, which is that interior.
Just the part, actually, if you zoom in a little bit, the part on the underside of the arch, that's the part that I'm trying to understand the intent behind switching the
You mean
the
which
material
one? The
there.
one with the
Yes, that
trellis?
underside.
Ah, okay.
And the bigger concern is potentially reflectivity from any of your lighting coming down on the hillside.
What will be brushed aluminum,
Brushed aluminum.
which is
Okay.
a convenient to
Okay.
avoid reflectivity. Which
To
is one of your
potentially
concerns.
blend color-wise, or will it contrast color-wise with
No, will
the
be
stone?
blended color.
Okay, okay,
Actually, initially we were talking about silver color, but now we'll be moving more sort of a brush golden color just to blend with the muted color of the dome, of the
Okay.
vaults.
okay. And then how tall, this wall that we're seeing here on the right, the plaster wall, about how much of that expanse are we seeing from the lower side?
Is it the same concern with the 7'5" wall?
It's less of a rule and more like the mass of seeing a
The mass of
large
seeing it. I think-
solid surface.
Let me check. I think it's about 6 feet.
Okay, okay. And then the idea there with the plantings in front, that those would continue to grow up, that you
Yes.
showed modeled there?
Right.
Okay. I'm going to pause in my question taking and move to Board Member Moslehi.
Okay. Thank you for presenting a really new concept to us. First of all, I want to, I appreciate you describing the origin of the idea of bringing the arches from Spanish historical architecture and the vaulted ceiling. And I'm trying to digest and understand the relationship between like the modern moves that are happening, especially with the material palette that is proposed. And how do you describe and connect the material palette that it's proposed with the traditional arches that we saw, that you guys had an inspiration image? Because like when you refer to the classical arches, that especially what we see in Santa Barbara, it's different from this. And I'm trying to understand like the main idea of the connection between the material palette, the geometry, and also the patterns that the glazing has created on the facades. Can you describe a little bit of that so that everybody are more clear about how did you blend these ideas all together?
Well, number one, let's talk about the vaults. The vaults are planning to be built in concrete with color incorporated. And what I was showing in the inspirational images is pretty much in the way that you see that rusticity of the vaults. And when you are dealing with this incredible scenic condition and the views, it's almost impossible not to think to maximize the transparency of the interior spaces with exterior spaces. Mm-hmm. So the reason that you see bigger openings, a little definitely different what happened in the 1400s when the vaults were built. The reference is not so literal. This is true. It's not literal reference, but it's intending to make a reference to that sort of using the heavy concrete finish texture as a component of connection with the history. Now, we are still, this is an exciting project for us, I don't need to tell you. We are revisiting constantly many issues that we are proposing. And the material that you're talking about, the facades materials, which are the one that you are probably generating your questions, are being analyzed, which is the kind of geometry that we can use, which is kind of the mullions that we can use. The interiors are another story, and I said what it is. That's what we, actually our video that you saw, we chopped the video 50% because what we are showing a lot of interior images. And when we discussed it actually with Sebastian, he said, in reality, the city is more interesting what happened with exterior, not with interior. So we reduced the video fundamentally to emphasize what happened with the outside. We can take a second look at those finishes.
Thank you. I'll leave that later for our comments to discuss like
But-
architectural
but
style.
I am trying to be as honest as possible.
Thank you
responding
so
to
much.
your
We understand it's an early concept. I have one more question about where the driveway, like the entry to the driveway is proposed. What's the rationale behind, because the location that it's proposed, it's a very dense vegetation existing. What's the rationale of proposing it there now and not in any other place? Can you go to a site plan, please?
Sure. Well, look at the dense vegetation. In reality, it's nothing of significant. I mean, it's vegetation for sure. But the reason why we selected right there is, number one, is a very interesting component in this project, which is an amazing big boulder that is located right on the corner when you come in. And it's like almost like a reference point. And we are using that big boulder, existing boulder, that allows to, is with coyote turns, to provide before the boulder the access. And in reality, we are not removing any protected species in that one. And we thought that the gesture of separating the access from the existing condition of today was a good way of avoiding, accentuating the use of that driveway, but two properties now instead of one. So we divided and we isolated the access to our property and to the other property. That's what we did.
Okay, thank you.
That was the reason why we located the access in that location.
I think that's my questions.
Board Member Sherry?
No questions.
Okay. Board Member Graffiti?
I know we're still at concept and focused more on the architectural style of the home, but I would quickly like to bring up the arborist report, and maybe you can share your intentions. If there are 4 coastal live oaks, can you just cover maybe in this image where those are to be removed? And is the intention that you would replace with the same kind with a coast live oak?
I'm not sure if there's a map here.
And through the chair to Board Member Graffiti, I did want to explain too that for this review, we requested the arborist report to get an idea of the trees even on the property.
Right.
And to get a better sense. I believe in the building footprint, there's 3 coastal live oaks for removal and then 2 pepper trees that are in the footprint.
Okay.
And there's about maybe 2 or 3 other mature trees.
Okay.
Some native, some non-native. There's also a question of whether or not this project will trigger a vegetation removal finding, and in that case, they will be required to provide 5 oak trees for every removed oak tree on the site.
Okay.
So we're still reviewing the project for how many oaks they need to supply to meet the guidelines
Okay.
and our other ordinances, but just wanted to get
I'm just
that
going off
context.
the description, and then I know this came up in public comment too, but it sounds like we're still early in the stage, so if you have any comments to make on that, great. Otherwise, we can move forward.
Not at this time.
Okay. I think that's it for me.
Okay. We'll start now with comments from the board. Board Member Sherry, would you like to start us off?
Yeah. So I see what you're doing with the arches. And I understand it. When I first looked at it, I didn't quite understand because the arches being illustrated from the inside out in the form of a 3-dimensional structure is taking the basic concept of a Spanish arch, and then which is kind of on the interior space, it could be perceived as very Spanish, but then you're actually celebrating it on the exterior. And that's actually more of a modernistic approach, which kind of, it goes along with what you said, you were a modernist. So I can see what you're doing now. And I'm not opposed to that, and I think it could be really interesting. What I'm concerned about is the height of the volume and how you have a kind of a significant setback of a covered arch, and then it goes into the kind of the glass wall, and then the interior. So you've got a full 2-story volume, and on the west, you can see it the most prominent is on the west because basically a two-story volume, and then below that is an additional story, and it's stacked. So I think that what you guys are going to need to do is look at the neighborhood compatibility guidelines that talk about apparent mass and stacking and not bringing a whole three-story volume right to the forefront of that hill. And that's going to be your challenge, is how do you get this very significant, your design is, your design partie is basically this repetition of arches. And in order to do that and still maintain the apparent mass and make it blend in with the hill, there's a reason that we have those findings, is so that it's not that we expect every piece of architecture to disappear into the hill, but there is a compatibility issue with massing and how the building is perceived from the exterior, and how it steps up the hill instead of 3 stories right at the front. And so I encourage you to look at that guideline and see how you might be able to keep your design, but also comply with the apparent mass. And that's my biggest comment. I mean, I think it's really interesting approach, and that's going to be my issue. I noticed on some of your site sections that it looked like you were actually exceeding the 30-foot height limit, and maybe it's because the section was drawn through a different part of the, I didn't ask a question about that because I was just going to talk about it, but on some of the site sections, it looks like some of your arches are actually, not the one you showed us, but there were other, there was a drawing that we, yeah, in some of those areas, and those are the areas that I'm talking about, that you're exceeding your height, and it's because you've got a 2-story plus volume and then a whole complete understory that's another whole floor. So just, that's your challenge.
Sorry, there's no comments at this point. It's just the board will have comments and then we'll make a motion, but thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Board Member Mosley?
Okay, I think it's a very brave move, what you're defining here. And I also understand the move, that the pure geometry that has been proposed, and but I understand that it's in concept phase, but I think like the way that it's like the facade is going, as I mentioned, I think it's getting away the purity of the geometry. I can see like the patterns going from horizontal to vertical at inside face of the, I think it's a concrete that the glazing is inside. So there's a lot of like little movements that are taking away that pure geometry and the vaulted ceilings that are coming from a very classical inspiration into a modern description. So I'm sure you guys will study it, and I would like to see more clear definition and inspiration of like why this is covered with like the vaulted ceiling, the vaulted geometry is covered, why it's covered with stone, and why it's not pure concrete, or why the facades are patterned this way. And I think like our purview is the way that it's visible from the hillside, so the pattern of the glazing, and as was mentioned before, if like, is there any reflection? There's like glazed railings there, so what are the like more clarification of the material palette? And I think for us to understand it from public view, I appreciate the axon views and that you guys have. It's really great for us to understand the massing, but some renderings from the street view when you're coming from Coyote, so we understand like how do we see the maximum height of the arches. and also drive in the neighborhood to see where are the locations that this project is visible from the hillside, like down below and going above. And maybe like when you guys like progress the 3D model, you can get some views from up the hill. Just a suggestion for everybody and the public to understand it better. And I think that is all my comments,
Okay.
very general.
Board Member Graffiti?
Yes, I agree with what's been said already. I would also love to see renderings from Coyote and from any other public roads or public viewpoints, and how this house would be reflected. I think one of my bigger concerns as well is height. And just one other thing to add, would encourage you and want you to study landscaping, you know, knowing exactly what trees are to be removed, what your mitigation plan would be, and then how you can incorporate maybe more landscaping, at least on the side of the neighbor with the oak removed. I know that fire concerns are high, but just study, you know, Santa Barbara best practices and different types of vegetation, trees, things like that, that could go with the style of the home, but also would help in your concerns about fire protection.
Okay, great. I generally agree with the comments said before. I think your party is really strong as a way of leading into modernism with this simplified forms, but also appreciating the arched form from the Spanish colonial history here. I agree with Board Member Sherry's standpoint. I think you start to lose a little bit of it with the strong heights when we start to look from farther below. I think especially at the height of the buildings by the garage, and then those two that we see on the taller side. And part of it is that the garage arch seems to be competing with the other arches as its one whole element and adds additional height. And I think to what Board Member Mosley was saying, part of what feels strong and clearly modern with it is that strong geometry, and you start to lose that with all of the other divisions that are happening with the panels of the window. I think we're open to full glazing given the style, and the competing rectangular geometries against the arch start to break up what is special of that modern geometry with the arch. The other thing that I think is worth studying is the thickness of the arch all the way around, but it starts to lose that weightiness, and maybe that's okay given the materiality or not, and that's something that will be interesting for us to look at. But I think the main views that were stated will be a part of the motion and being able to see it from the street and then also from lower. Since you're able to do that video, I think it would be helpful of not just above, but start to come down, because that's really the view that the public will see. And I think the screening of those tall walls that are along the site. The other thing, materiality for us to look at is that hardscape, and if we can really understand what that permeable paver or permeable, what do you say, asphalt versus the other brick, and if you can take a look at the other materials in the neighborhood of how that site work would look. But overall, I think the board is in support of the move that you're making.
The braveness.
Yes. The commitment to
Our
that
colleague
style
said.
is okay.
I need a little recommendation about my braveness, please.
There you go, your braveness. I think it's the height, the overall height and scale of it, and trying to study that. I do want to make or address a public comment that we received about the views, and unfortunately, so privacy is within the board's purview and making sure that we're following good neighbor guidelines. But views that people have on their own property being disturbed by a new structure going up is not within the purview. And that is something that you can take legal action if you want to protect your views, but outside of that, they're not protected as a part of the single-family design board. So I'll state that. Are there any other notes that the board would like to make? Otherwise, I can combine them in a motion.
Chair Lewis, if I may, I did also hear public comment on story polls, and I think it would be helpful to have mention of that somewhere in the motion if you feel it appropriate. But I'll leave that up to you. Thank you.
Generally, I think the board may not need them with our understanding of the heights, but I'm curious to hear from other board members.
I think as long as they provide some renderings from the public view that we can understand, like the height from the street and the hillside, I don't think it's needed. Yeah, if we've already, or we're going to request renderings from the public views that I think might address that, and I think it's premature for us to request story polls because I think the apparent massing as viewed from the downhill side still needs to be worked on. Do you guys understand what I mean by apparent massing?
Already we've asked for the general height to be reduced. So if at the next meeting we feel like it's still something to be addressed, we'll address it then. But at this time, I don't think story polls. Board Member Graffiti, do you have any? Okay. Okay. I move to continue this project indefinitely to the full board with the following comment. The board appreciates the partie of the arches and the commitment to the modern design for this residence. The apparent volume of the residence needs to be reduced, and the applicant needs to reference the SFDB guidelines. The main concerning areas are where you visually see 3 stories. The board would like the geometry of the higher stories above the garage to be studied so as to minimize the visual impact of this additional wing. The board requests 3D views, renderings or video that shows the view from the street at the driveway from Coyote, as well as a view from down on the hillside, looking up at the residence. The board requests the applicant to study the gate location and to show in diagram how cars would stack up in approaching, especially given the large number of cars shown that could park on the property. The board would like to see a conceptual landscaping plan and recommends incorporating screening plants from the neighbor, and would like to understand how mitigation is proposed for the removal of the oak trees. The board would like to see a material palette that especially denotes the material of the archways and the paving and any vertical walls, as well as the handrail or guardrails.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Board Member Graffiti,
Yes.
Board Member Moslehy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sherry,
Yes.
Chair Lewis.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Okay, we are moving on to our last item. And that would be great. I will take a quick break, but I'll be back. But we're going to run right through. Okay.
I understand.
And I know that she said my view is not protected by the city. Yes. But I'm not valuing my property to go down $1 million.
Right, because, well, here's my email. I don't have a business card, but my name's here on the agenda. Sure, yeah. So shoot me an email or give me a call, and I can get my.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Wait for a little bit longer. Work? Okay. I'll go ahead and get started while we wait for Board Member Moseley. The project is here today for 3139 Seacliff. It's a continued item, and it's here for a project design and final approval. Proposal for soil remediation by excavation and off-site disposal of contaminated soil is proposed for 3139 Seacliff. Excavation depths range from 12 to 36 inches and would result in excavation and exportation of 2,225 cubic yards of contaminated soil to an appropriate permitted landfill. Excavations would be backfilled with uncontaminated soil from the site with 1,350 cubic yards of cut and another 1,350 cubic yards of fill balanced on the site. The project includes a construction staging area and stabilized construction entrance at the southeast corner of the project site. Vegetation clearing and grubbing to accommodate the soil remediation includes removal of 17 front setback and 38 interior trees. Retained trees would be protected with tree protection measures, and removed trees would be replaced with approximately 55 new trees. Whew, I gotta breathe here. All areas disturbed would be hydroseeded with a native erosion control mix following completion of grading activities. No changes to the existing residents are proposed. Operate dated December 13th, 2024. The project would implement the remedial action plan approved by the Santa Barbara County Environmental Health Services. Or should I keep going, or?
You can continue. I think there was maybe a sentence mixed up in there, but I think that covers most of it. Yeah.
So should I continue with the project would implement? Yes. Okay, thank you. The project would implement the remedial action plan approved by Santa Barbara County Environmental Health Services Division dated April 30th, 2019. The remediation would be completed under permit by the Santa Barbara County Air Pollution Control District and the conditions of the permit to operate dated December 13th, 2024. The staff hearing officer approved a coastal development permit and determined that the project qualifies for an exemption from further environmental review under Section 15330 of the California Environmental Quality Act, based on guidelines on October 15th, 2025. So the project is here again today for project design and final approval. Neighborhood preservation findings and grading findings are required. When the project was last heard on March the 10th, 2025, and attached was a staff memo that hopefully you all read. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair Lewis. Acting Design Review Supervisor Ted Hamilton Roll. I just want to be clear about what the board's purview here is today. This board is an aesthetic design review board that looks at a project's compatibility with the neighborhood in terms of design, size, scale, and in this case, grading. So the board's purview today is to look at the grading and determine whether or not it's compatible with the neighborhood in terms of how much grading is being done, whether there's any scarring to any hillsides, which the site is not exactly a hillside. And you'll need to focus on the neighborhood preservation findings and the grading findings. Just one comment or clarification, although this project does involve vegetation clearing, it does not require a vegetation removal permit because it's not in the hillside design district. And I will turn it over to the case planner, Carly Ernest, associate planner, for additional comments.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton Rollin. Good afternoon, board members. I'm the case planner, and just a couple project-specific notes. The overall goal of the project is soil remediation and to get the contaminations down to levels that are acceptable for residential land use, as well as protecting human health and the environment. And the contamination is a result of a former greenhouse operation that operated at the project site for about 15 years, but those operations ceased in 2007. And staff recommended approval of the project to the staff hearing officer, which was last Wednesday. And the staff hearing officer's purview is over the coastal development permit in the California Environmental Quality Act determination that it's exempt from further environmental review. And staff had recommended approval of that because we found it consistent with coastal policies and that it met the criteria for the CEQA exemption. And the project was also reviewed by members of the city's land development team. This included the Creeks Division, who concurred with the conclusions of the biological resources assessment. That concluded there's no anticipated impacts to sensitive biological resources or water quality. And lastly, the project was reviewed by Santa Barbara County Environmental Health Services and Santa Barbara County Air Pollution Control District. They both provide local oversight for cleanup sites and have approved a remedial action plan for the project, and APCD issued a permit to operate that has some conditions for during construction related to dust control monitoring. And I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Yes, I have a clarifying question first, which is our board is here just for the aesthetics of grading, but we have received a lot of public comments about the concern for environmental impact. But it sounds like both the land development and creeks and the environmental services have approved, and they're the ones that actually review that for those reasons. If any of the public here have concerns, are there ways for them to talk to either one of those teams since that's in their purview?
Thank you, Chair Lewis. Yes, last Wednesday at the staff hearing officer hearing, we had all of the representatives from the public agencies here, including EHS and APCD, and feel there was a thorough discussion held between members of the public and staff and the decision maker over the environmental issues. If they have further questions, they can reach out to Tom Rezek with EHS specifically, or William Saroff with the Air Pollution Control District. And the public was made aware at the staff hearing officer hearing that they could reach out to them, and there was the discussion held on those issues then.
Okay. So then after this, it goes through, if we were to grant project design and final approval, it does not go back to the staff hearing officer, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any other clarifying questions?
Yeah,
from
I
the
have
board?
a question. Thinking forward to what we're being asked to do today, which is project design approval and making the findings, and thinking in advance of the one finding that I always have challenges with, and that is protecting the public health, safety, and welfare. I've always had an issue with that finding, and in this particular project, I for one, cannot make that finding. So I won't be able to, I don't know if anybody else feels the same way, but because that particular finding is in our neighborhood preservation ordinance guidelines and we have to make the findings, I would not be able to make that finding. So, and I don't know how anybody else feels about that.
Yeah, how does staff, any comments there?
I'm saying that I won't be able to just because I'm not qualified.
Is the statement for the health, safety, and welfare purely the aesthetics? And if not, how are we to make that finding?
Thank you, Chair Lewis. That's a great question. Again, the purview of this board is aesthetics and neighborhood compatibility. The health, safety, and welfare finding is really kind of a holdover from older conceptions of city planning, and it goes way back to when planning and zoning was kind of started back in the early 20th century. That said, it is something that's under your purview. You can consider it and comment on it and ask questions about it. Know that this project has gone through extensive review by permitting agencies that whose goal it is to protect the public, health, safety, and welfare. The APCD and EHS both want to really minimize impacts to the neighborhood and to the city with this project. So we hope that you can look at those, look at that evidence before you, and be able to make a decision today.
One more sorry. Is there a reason that triggered this one for the full board and not just staff approval, since there's nothing being proposed to be built on this site?
Chair Lewis, this is a full board project, in part just because of the amount of grading being done. The quantities over 250 cubic yards usually trigger full board review for us. Understanding that this project isn't necessarily going to change the topography of the site in an appreciable way, we just like to bring projects with a lot of grading to the full board.
Okay. Board Member Graffitti?
Yeah, I don't know that this matters, but I know that we have given feedback about that item in our motion before, and there were potentially steps that would be removed. Can you speak to, is anything in progress?
Timeline.
Yeah, the timeline for that. Is anything in progress about that finding about public health, safety, and wellness?
Board Member Graffitti, I think you're referring to the single-family streamlining effort. Yes, there are changes proposed to the ordinance and the findings.
And when would those go into effect if approved?
We hope soon, probably early next year, spring.
So basically what we're being asked to do is listen to public comment, which there's a lot of, and the applicants, both of their presentations, which they're going to be contradictory to the health, safety, and wellness and welfare of this project. And you're asking us to listen. You just said you're asking us to listen to the information and then be able to make the finding. And I just don't see, I just see this as a huge waste of everybody's time. I'm just being completely candid.
None of us are environmental experts, and there are other people which purview that is. And so our findings are asking us to make things that are outside of our professional experience.
I think one thing, Chair Lewis, that I've seen before on other projects that have been before this board and with previous chairs where issues have come up. A great example of this is looking at projects that might have flood issues or with substantial grading on hillside properties. But we have the Creek Stormwater Compliance Program, and it's something that we reviewed during our completeness review. And then it's something, again, that's addressed during the building permit submittal phase. And none of us here are stormwater compliance experts. And yet those projects, when those findings are made for the public health and safety and welfare, it's something that we have building inspectors on site looking at these issued permitted documents signed and stamped by professionals, as you all know. in your fields of expertise. So I think that, and Mr. Hamilton Roll, you can correct me if I'm wrong or add to this at all, but in your review, it's ensuring that, and whatever insurances that you feel as non-experts you would like to see as conditions of approval, that's also an opportunity for you to present those items if you see fit. So and that's all I have to say about that. And I'm not sure if Mr. Hamilton Roll wants to provide any comment on that. Thank you.
I think the difference between those projects and this one is that in this project, it's the only part of the project. So that's why I think it's coming up now. It's actually a question that I've always had, and this project is fortunately bringing it in the forefront for us to resolve, but it's also making it's kind of impossible at this point for me to make that finding, just telling everybody right now.
And if I could offer one additional kind of reassurance, again, this board's purview is basically just the aesthetics of the grading and how the grading is going to affect the site, how the vegetation removal is going to affect the site.
Yes, we understand, which is why we've been advocates to remove that finding. What is possible if we were to make a motion without all the findings? And actually, we have another staff person.
You would have to address each of the findings in your motion and whether you can make or not make them. So you will have to address it. Looks like Ms. Kokinde is wanting to speak.
Good afternoon, board members, if you can hear me. So in order to grant project design approval, you have to make all of the findings. And I recognize that this is an awkward position. We've talked at length over the last year and a half about all the different findings and the different, kind of refinements of that and some of the code amendments we want to make to address that because it doesn't come up that often. But in a project like this, there's kind of a question from the public. There's question all around. And I don't know to what extent it's been discussed, but generally, we wouldn't schedule a project if we didn't think that it would be able to address some of these findings. And so this project has already been appealed. The staff hearing officer decision has already been appealed to the Planning Commission. As part of that decision, there was the land use approval or for the coastal development permit, and then the staff hearing officer also made the determination for environmental review. And so that's when we had the experts from EHS as well as APCD to be there to help guide the staff hearing officer on those particular, like what were the best practices, what's incorporated in the conditions of approval for this project. So as part of that coastal development permit, like there's certain expectations that are best practices and conditions that this project is going to have to do in order to address health and safety. So if you could always, again, just there's different ways. It's an awkward position when you feel like you're not the experts, but you could be like based on, the reports or, what you understand from staff that this doesn't seem to pose any direct issues or that they've been addressed through conditions of approval. But if you can't make that, then that's, in order to grant approval, you've got to make all the findings. So I think that's just where we are. There's a right to appeal, whether it's, neighbors or an applicant. Either way, the whole thing will be going to the Planning Commission because your decisions go to the Planning Commission, and the staff hearing officer approval of the coastal development permit as well as the environmental review are already going to be going to Planning Commission on appeal. So I think that, I would just reinforce to say, you're looking at the purview, your purview is aesthetics, you're looking at, there is this finding, and we'll just see how it plays out in the discussion. But I think.
What's the timeline for the appeal process and when it would come back to our board?
So we need to work that out with the appellant and the applicant team. So it's generally I mean, we don't like to sit on project appeals. We like to get those scheduled pretty quickly, but there is lead-in time to draft a staff report, address all the issues.
Okay, I'll reword. Will it happen before or after the findings are changed for the single-family design board?
Oh, it will happen before, for sure, yeah. This is, the project design approval today, we can't hold, this project has been deemed complete. They already, permit streamlining stopped with the staff hearing officer decision, but we're trying to, we're bringing it here today in order to, understanding that this action is also appealable to the Planning Commission, so we would take both appeals at the same time, should there be an appeal.
Okay. I would like to generally state again from the board that we don't think that a project like this needs to come in front of the single family design board and as a part of future improvements to the board, that these would not need to come in front of single family design board, and that our board should not be held to make findings for the safety, health, and welfare if our purview is aesthetics. So I want that generally stated. And any other comments from the board?
And that's heard, thank you.
Okay, then we'll begin. If the applicant can come forward. You'll have 15 minutes to present. If you can start with the previous minutes, which are on the third tab. Walk us through those, and then any changes in the scope and anything that has come up in your previous hearings. Thank you. Please make sure your microphone, I think they're on. State your names for the record.
My name is Dale Caron, and I recognize the tension that you're all in today where we're talking about design, but we're talking about more than design, and I acknowledge that. And in light of that, wanted to give you a little context around the whole project. So I'm not just talking about aesthetics here in my introduction. And I have something written here, and then I'll interject a little bit too. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm one of the owners at 3139 Seacliff, and more importantly, I'm a future resident. My family and I, along with 2 other families, all with young children, plan to make this our permanent home. So when we talk about soil remediation and neighborhood safety, this isn't theoretical for us. We're investing in the long-term health of our children and our community. So our presentation is actually not in conflict with the public sentiment, as you pointed out, Ms. Sherry. Respectfully, our presentation, I think, is actually quite in conjunction with public comment and public sentiment. So we've spent a lot of time, I think every person here to make public comment we've met with face-to-face, personally, many on multiple occasions. So I want to point that out, that we're not in conflict or fighting against the people that are concerned about the health and safety of our neighborhood. So from day one, we've been proactive in our approach. Earlier this year, we held 2 in-person meetings with our neighbors to share information and invite feedback. One of those meetings included our geologist, Steve Campbell, who was there to answer technical questions directly. Beyond that, I've personally spoken with leaders from both the Surfrider Foundation and the Santa Barbara Bucket Brigade Farm nearby to ensure our process aligns with broader community and environmental values. We've worked for over a year with EHS and APCD to craft a cleanup plan that not only meets their standards, but in many areas exceeds them. We voluntarily imposed stricter safety measures, things like continuous air monitoring every 30 minutes, immediate shutdown if any particulate levels rise above threshold limits, and high-powered industrial misting systems operating continuously to suppress dust and air particulates. We've taken these steps not because they're required, but because they're the right thing to do for neighbors. I also want to acknowledge our neighbor, Gil Berry. We've met with Gil 8 times, starting in summer 2024. And while we don't yet have his full support, his feedback has helped us strengthen our plan. We've enhanced dust control, improved transparency, and raised our own standards. That collaboration, even amidst disagreement, reflects the kind of neighborhood that we want to build, one grounded in respect and shared safety. So this is about stewardship of our land, our communities, our families, and we are fully committed to completing this cleanup transparently, responsibly, and safely for everyone who lives near Seacliff. Thank you for your time and careful consideration.
Thank you. I believe you said you wanted us to address the minutes. Is that correct?
Yes, and if you can state your name for the record, and yes, address the minutes first, and then go into your presentation.
Yes. Well, thank you, Chair Lutz, and members of the board and staff. My name is Linda Blackburn, Principal Planner with RM Design Group, and I'm representing the applicants and owners. As staff mentioned, the site does have one existing single-family residence on there on just an over 3-acre site, and it's on the corner of Seacliff and Braemar. And as I mentioned, the proposal is to remediate the site by excavating 2,225 cubic yards of contaminated soil, which was the result of a prior nursery use. In response to the minutes, when it was heard and approved at the concept level of the board, there was unanimous approval, and the comments that were provided was that the board recognized that this was to be reviewed due to the municipal code requirement for the amount of grading that was proposed as part of the project, and that the aesthetic impact of the removal of the contaminated soil has an aesthetically negligible impact, and that there is tree removal proposed, and that appeared to be necessary as
Can you
part of.
scroll down on your screen so it's visible for everyone?
Required, and there's also one required for clearance for overhead power lines. And there are no specimen trees that are proposed to be removed as part of the project. And in coming back to the board, was looking forward for staff to continue to define the required level of environmental review that would be required for this project due to the extremely sensitive nature of the soil remediation. And in consideration of the health, safety, and welfare concerns, which I believe the owners and we all respect because that has been their primary concern, they are going to be living here, is that leaving the contaminated soil in place does also have its own environmental impacts and repercussions. And that was discussed at the staff hearing officer hearing by representatives of Environmental Health and Safety and Air Pollution Control District. So in best serving the environmental stewardship of the site and the eventuality of not only the owners but their children living there for multiple years, this is the most environmentally safe method to treat the site rather than leaving it in there indefinitely. So at this time, I just want to mention that there's no vertical construction or development proposed at this time. It is just the grading. And as you mentioned, the tree and vegetation removal will be required as part of the project. The project did receive the unanimous approval at concept level review, and as well as approvals from Street Tree Advisory Committee, Parks and Recs Commission, and most recently, Staff Hearing Officer. We are requesting project design and final approval from the board today, and we appreciate the consideration and the opportunity to present this to the board. And I believe, I'm not sure if Jason, you wanted to add anything?
Yeah, you have about 8 minutes remaining in your presentation.
Yeah, my name is Jason Sanukian, and I'm also one of the owners along with Dale Kieran, and so I don't have really too much more to add than what's already been said, but we look forward to working with your board. Thank you.
Chair Lewis, through you to the applicant, I'd recommend running through the plans quickly just to show the board and the public what you're planning to do.
And just a reminder, make sure your microphones are on. That little green light's on. Thank you.
So I'm not sure how zoomed in this in. Again, Linda Blackburn. So the efforts of the work are to excavate 225 cubic yards. I'm sorry, 2,225 cubic yards of soil, and then there will be some movement of 1,350 cubic yards on site, and it will be a balanced site. So there will be removed soil, but then the rest of it will be covered in. And the amount of grading at the end of the project versus initially is it's actually going to have less grade elevations than it currently has. It's currently at a 3% slope, and it's going to eventually be a 2.5 slope. So the deepest points are 36 inches. It ranges between 12 to 36 inches at the deepest points, and you will see it's more towards the northwest corner of the site. And then let me go to the next page that shows the limits of disturbance. And actually, sorry, let me go back here. I think there are trees up here that are going to be protected in place. So there will be fencing around the trees, and that was reviewed and approved as part of the STAC and Parks and Recs approval. So the grading, these are the limits of disturbance, this boundary perimeter line, and the excavation is going to occur primarily towards the northern end of the site, and the perimeter is actually what they're going to do is fill the dirt in from the perimeter in. So as I mentioned, it's going to go from a 3% to a 2.5% slope, and no additional fill is going to be brought into the site. This shows there's going to be a construction staging area. As part of the staff hearing officer meeting, there was discussion and input received from neighbors in regards to the location of that, potentially truck traffic trips. So one of the conditions of approval that was added in was to study where that could be located to take into consideration the comments that were received by the neighbors. It will be starting somewhere close to where it's located now, simply because the area of remediation is at the northwestern portion of the site, and so it would need to that would need to be removed. And if there's any other movement of that staging area, it would need to be post removal of the significant areas of excavation. And let's see here. Okay. So the tree disposition plan demonstrates the trees that are located on the site, not only in the Street Tree Advisory Commission's or committee's purview, but also on site because it is in the coastal zone. There is an ESHA requirement to do tree mitigation at a 1-to-1 replacement, and with that, there are going to be 38 interior trees removed, 17 setback trees, for a total of 55 trees to be removed, which will be replaced at a 1-to-1 ratio. And then there is a tree replacement plan. I want to be respectful of time. 3.5 minutes. Thank you. And so the arborist report recommended mitigation measures and identification and plotting of the trees are listed as part of the landscape plans and tree replacement plans, and identifying what trees are being removed and their respective locations. It also has a historical aerial views of how these trees have propagated over time, and they are invasive, primarily eucalyptus. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. If you need it later, you have 3 minutes remaining. We'll move to public comment.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with in-person public comment. We do have several slips. We'll start with Mr. Gilberry. If you could please approach the podium. And Chair Lewis, Mr. Barry has been asked to comment on behalf of others, so he would like to pool his time for a total of 5 minutes, if that's okay with you.
Who are the others? And if they can stand up behind and state their name for the record.
I have Mr. Timothy Rogers and Arturo Gallegos. There, okay.
Okay. They can be pulled together. Are you able to adjust the timer?
Let me see what magic I can work. I may not be able to, but I believe the timer is 5 minutes, correct, Ms. Affel? So I'll go ahead and just run the timer twice, and I'll just keep an eye on it.
Okay, and then if you can actually be the one then to say when we have 1 minute remaining.
Absolutely.
That would be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Microphone? Okay, thank you. The issue here is the health impact of neighbors breathing toxic dust raised by the grading. This 2-month grading operation will cause a significant quantity of highly toxic, cancer-causing dust to be raised into the air, be blown by the wind where neighbors will breathe it. This microscopic dust stays in the air for weeks, so will be breathed 24/7 for 2 months. Due to the massive quantity of grading and the long time that the dust is breathed, it can reach a level in one's bloodstream that will cause significant sickness, cancer, even death. This stuff is deadly. Scientific experiments have proven that tiny quantities of dieldrin given rats and cows gives them cancer and death in 3 weeks and totally destroys their livers. Dieldrin was designed to kill. I've done 14 years of extensive research into the subject. This project's been going for 14 years now. They just bought it a year ago and took it over. My research have showed that the proposed conditions of approval are inadequate. They're close, but inadequate. The level of dust that will get into the air is far above the Environmental Protection Agency accepted safe levels. About half the area to be graded and removed is classified by the Environmental Protection Agency Code of Federal Regulations, 40 CFR Part 261, which says, and I quote, soil exceeding 1 milligram per kilogram of dieldrin in the soil is classified as Class 1 hazardous waste. Class 1 is the worst of the worst. Has to go to Kettleman Hills by Fresno. $1 million worth of hauling. Okay. The safe level is 0.3 milligrams per kilogram, not 1 milligram per kilogram, which is designated hazardous waste. Below the 1 milligram, it's not as hazardous. It's toxic waste, and that can go to Santa Maria or Simi Valley. Research shows that 100% of the area to be removed will raise a quantity of cancer-causing dust higher than the Environmental Protection Agency safe limit of 0.3 milligrams per kilogram. That's not the level that dumps can accept. That's the Environmental Protection Agency safe limit to breathe. There's a big difference between what the dumps can accept, which their team is focusing on, and what's safe for the neighbors, which is totally different. About 50% of the area to be removed is defined as Class 1 hazardous waste, which is the worst of the worst. You can't put Class 1 in a regular dump like Santa Maria or Simi Hills. It's against federal law. Without the stronger mitigation measure, neighbors can get very sick, can get cancer, even die. That's why I'm here. The only reason. Okay. I'm asking you to please add one mitigation measure to the staff's list of conditions of approval that the applicant must stop and water when their dust meter reads a toxic dust level of 25 milligrams per cubic liter of air above the background level. The background level is what's at 8 o'clock in the morning, instead of the 50 required by the county. We neighbors are asking you to require as a condition of approval that this proposed mitigation measure be required to be implemented for 100% of the soil evacuated and trucked away, not just for the tiny amount that they now have agreed to do it on. 25 milligram per cubic liter that we're asking for is the standard that's required now by Ventura, Oxnard, and all of Los Angeles for toxic soil like this. Only Santa Barbara County just hasn't got with the program yet.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Okay. This mitigation measure I propose will reduce the cancer-causing dust in half from a level that will cause cancer to a level that is safe. This mitigation measure will only be adequate if applied to 100% of the toxic soil to be removed and hauled away. If you approve this project without requiring the stronger mitigation measure for all the soil that has to be hauled away, your decision today might result in neighbors' children getting sick, cancer, or die. I think that's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Carol Shaw. Please approach the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
Glasses. Thank you for your consideration.
Pull the mic down.
The mic. I'm really here to emphasize what Mr. Berry has already told you. I have the same statistics. And really, all that's necessary is to change the levels to 25 micrograms per cubic meter, because unfortunately, this is being treated in a not such a serious, it doesn't, it's a serious thing. This is extraordinarily high levels of dedrin. Why is this before you? You asked this, I wonder that. Did the county environmental health department issue its permit, assuming that the air pollution control district could consider the issue of the grading dust because they're using a standard measure? Did the county air pollution control district make the same incorrect assumption? Is the city doing the same thing? What if you or a loved one is diagnosed with cancer? Will you ask yourself, could it have been prevented if only someone had made a decision that may have kept our air and our water safe? Will you be around, applicants? Will your children be around during this construction phase when this dust is released into our community? We are a block away from Hendry's Beach. This dust on the prevailing afternoon winds will go into the Arroyo Burro watershed. We have to ask ourselves, do we value our environment? What about our local wildlife and the pets who enjoy Hendry's? And how much do we care about each other? A difference of 25 would make, to condition your approval on the
Pardon the
requirement
interruption,
that the
but
developer
you're at
stop in
time.
water when the dust meter reads 25 micrograms per cubic meter and assure there is no runoff in the process.
Thank you.
It's the condition that you really need to place on your approval. Please do that.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have Natasha Todorov come up, please. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
Have you ever watched somebody you love die of cancer? I have. I know this is a difficult decision for you, and I'm going to turn my comments to staff because there is something seriously broken within the planning department when these projects are CEQA exempt. That is what makes us not trust you. This is like a terrible 60s movie. What could possibly go wrong? And then you see whole communities dying. Extremely sensitive nature of soil remediation. You know what got me was when Gil Berry described to me, looking across his street, men in hazmat suits going across that property. People don't wear hazmat suits because it's safe. ask us to dismiss it when this dust is going to go through the air across all of Santa Barbara, and we're not going to know. Do we get cancer from that? Do we get cancer from going through the air? But what did we get cancer from? So we know this needs to be fixed. We know something needs to happen. But do not ask us to trust you when every single project you pass is CEQA exempt. If this does not qualify for an environmental impact review, I don't know what does. But there is something seriously wrong in the planning department when you guys keep passing everything off as CEQA exempt. And an old holdover. Don't buy their old holdover. Sometimes somebody has to step up and say, no, we are not going to allow a broken process to continue. It stops with us.
Pardon the interruption, but you're out of time. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I have no further slips. If anyone. And your name was?
Oh, you can go up, come up,
I'm
yeah,
sorry,
come up
Eve.
to the podium.
All right.
Yeah, and go ahead and state your name for the record and the address where you live, so we can have you
I
on
live
there.
at 3154 Braemar Drive.
Thank you.
My name's Eve Leeds. I'm not here to complain about the height of the dirt getting raised because I can't see my ocean view or whatever. I'm not here for any of that kind of thing. I'm here for the same reason all the other public are here. I'm asking and begging you to protect our health. I don't know if you're the right board to do it. Maybe you need to talk to the people who did the previous approvals and all that with the CEQA exemptions and all that. But this has to be considered because part of this group, you even said it, is part of health and wellness for the public. So I can't stand by and not get involved to protect my community in my area of Braemar because there's 8 kids that live within 1 or 2 houses of that property, and they're going to have their kids living there too, and I don't want them to get sick. They might not know everything that I've read or everything you've read or they've read, but we need to make sure that people are staying healthy. So I am here asking to request that the dust action level be on the ongoing soil excavation for the entire 3 acres be lowered from 50 micrograms to 25. It is dangerous. It's cancerous. It's a neurotoxin. It also lasts for 100 years. It's not like, oh, the half-life is just 5 years. It's not like that. And it's in clay soil that is even worse. Once they start digging it up, it's going to be coming up in our neighborhoods. It's not regular dust. It's the worst of the worst. It has the potential to spread over our whole properties and inside of our houses forever. It's not just during the digging period. So your decisions on how to manage the dust is critical to consider and is a moral issue. I'm asking you to ensure that an unvested professional third party is overseeing all actions and that the limit is to the 25 micrograms per cubic liter. Most respected authorities already use 25. The South Coast Air Quality Management District, the California Department of Toxic Substances Control, Community Air Monitoring Plan, the ACGIH, was the American Conference of Governmental Industrial Hygienists, they use 25. US OSHA uses 25. Cal OSHA uses 25. So Los Angeles, Ventura, Oxnard,
Pardon the
they've all
interruption,
adopted
but,
25,
you're out of time to wrap up.
25
Thank you.
threshold as their action level. So I do not understand why Santa Barbara would not also be using a safer level than what they've decided is an arbitrary number on Santa Barbara's family planning or whatever. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, at this point, I no longer have any slips. If anyone else wishes to make a comment, please fill one out and bring it to me. At this time, we will turn our attention to virtual attendance. And I do not see any hands raised virtually to make a comment. And we did receive several. Actually, we do have a commenter virtually, Mr. Craig Leeds. Mr. Leeds, you have 2 minutes to speak. Please proceed.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, I'm the husband of the woman who just spoke so eloquently, much more so than I will. But I live with her and my children and my grandchild and my mother-in-law, 4 generations, and we're across the street from this place. And, you know, the children is the worst of the worst. It makes DDTs seem like water, I guess. It's just moving the soil. It's going to cause dust. You know, there's going to be shortcuts when push comes to shove with the people who do the construction. There's going to be times when dust goes in the air. It's just normal. What happens when the dust does exceed whatever the limit is, whether it's 50 or even goes down to 25 like it ought to be? Is it going to stop? Is it going to stop permanently? Or is it just going to stop for 5 minutes and continue? It's of no value whatsoever if they just stop for a little while and then continue on and blast us with dust again. This children dust, it is the worst of the worst. And we'll never know. We'll never know whether when we get cancer a few years from now, whether it's because of them moving the children or some other thing, but it could be a combination of both. Anyway, I'm begging you to, limit the level of when they have to stop moving dirt when the dust level comes down to 25 micrograms per cubic meter rather than the 50. Everywhere else, just like my wife said, everywhere else requires 25. Anyway, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. At that, I do not see any further hands raised virtually for comment, and I will move on to what was received by written correspondence. We did receive a letter from Mr. Gilberry, Mark Zarati, Bucket Brigade Leadership Team, Greg Welch, Maureen Raffoni, Sharon Hall, Eve Leeds, Diane Atkinson, Craig Leeds, Dory Ringe, Marcia Engelman, and Carol Shaw. And at that, I will turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for speaking and for writing in public comment. We will start with questions from the board, and I'd like to start with understanding if there is a reason that the applicant isn't doing the 25 micrograms per cubic meter, and if that's something that they are open to doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the bottom line is, we are trying to adhere to the standards that have been written into the code, by the agencies that oversee this. So presently, it's not something that we're required to do. We are in discussions with the neighbors about it, but in terms of a regulation, we are following the regulations and the standards that have been prescribed by APCD and EHS and the staff hearing officer for that matter.
So there's no other reason to not do it other than it's not currently a standard?
No, if I could jump in there too. We're like Jason said, we've been talking to the neighbors, we've been talking to our consultants that are actually going to, like Steve Campbell, our geologist, who's going to be, his name's on the extraction process. His license is on it. We're working with him to make sure this is a project that's doable. So the tension that he's brought up to us, we don't know we're not the experts on this, so we're relying on a lot of experts to move forward. His commentary and the tension that he's feeling is he wants this to be, and we do too, want this to be the fastest process possible, because we don't want this to go on for delays and delays and months and months and months. Steve thinks we can do this in 6 weeks if we, just based on his current estimates. So his concerns with the higher standard is that we may be shut down so much and have to stop and have to pause and wait for wind to go down or the dust to be suppressed, that the project extends out for quite a bit of time, which we don't want to have this open extraction happening in the neighborhood for longer than it needs to. So that's a tension that we're navigating, that Steve is navigating and helping advise us on, while we kind of collaborate with the neighbors, because every concern brought up we've heard, and care about as well, certainly because have families and kids and plan to be neighbors there for decades to come. So we care about these things and want to make sure the project can get executed as well.
This geologist, he also does work in the Ventura, LA, and South Coast regions, or no?
We're in Santa Barbara County.
Correct. Does this geologist also do work in Ventura, LA, or the South Coast regions that require this 25 micrograms per square meter or cubic meter?
I would have to ask him.
I'm not sure either.
I'm not sure.
EHS, and it'd be great if Steve was here, because again, we're not experts. It was brought up at the staff hearing officer meeting last week when EHS was addressing everybody that a lot of these standards in Santa Barbara, we're taking readings at like every 60 seconds, where their monitoring equipment is like once, and then 30 minutes later, then it's again. So again, I apologize for my non-technical commentary, but EHS was pointing out that this is actually a higher standard because of how we take the readings here. So that was his defense of why 50 actually is higher in Santa Barbara. But again, I want to defer out to EHS, not me. That was, however, what was addressed to the SHO.
Did you want to respond to that as well, or no? You're just ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Similar to what the owner Dale was mentioning, and as he mentioned, we are not the experts. I think that it is similar to understanding not just what those metrics are, but over what period of time. And I do not exactly know what those time thresholds are because I'm not part of those regulatory agencies, but my analogy would be it's whether you ate 5 cheeseburgers a day for 5 days or if you ate 2 for 5 years. I mean, I don't know what those metrics are, but it's a matter of a period of time and understanding what those time thresholds are, because one may be more beneficial than the other, regardless of what the eventual total construction or total remediation time is. And I think those are what the experts are capable of speaking to, because they do consider health impacts with metrics, with data that's quantified over time.
And could I add, the design here and a lot of what we've been pushing for is to not have any dust. We hope all the readings are 0, and that's why we're putting in industrial fog misters, because the hope is that we have no dust at all. That's the hope for the whole project. So we're hoping that and advocating and trying to be on the front end of suppressing the dust through spraying, through hopefully having moisture dust after the rainy season, where we're not having to even worry about readings because the dust is being suppressed before it even lifts into the air.
Well,
That's
if we're
what we're
hoping to
designing
do
for.
that, it wouldn't matter to lower it. Can I hear from staff and understand what a CEQA evaluation would require, and maybe we'll start with that.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Lewis. And I do agree it's beneficial to understand the CEQA process, and we did overview this at the staff hearing officer hearing. But the way CEQA works is that the first step is you have to determine if it qualifies for an exemption. You cannot jump straight to an initial study, which would then determine if you need to prepare an environmental impact report or a negative declaration. So that very first step is finding if it is exempt under either a categorical or a statutory exemption. In this case, the project was exempt under one of the categorical exemptions, that is especially for cleanup of contaminated sites and excavation and offsite disposal of contaminated soil. It's the section 15330. That is the standard categorical exemption that is applied to many cleanup projects. So staff found that it met all of the requirements of that categorical exemption, as well as was not met one of the exceptions that would kick it out of that exemption. And there's a list of those that it's not going to impact scenic highways, historic resources, quite a few exceptions to the exemption that also did not kick the project out of that exemption. And this was reviewed in conjunction with the city attorney, the applicant's attorney, as well as the city's environmental analyst, who all found that it met the requirements of that exemption.
Okay, so if if as a part of this, the board wanted to see an environmental impact report, is that possible, and what would that process look like to obtain that, and how might that vary from the reports that have already been done and verified?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Lewis. So that determination that the project is exempt from environmental review is a land use decision made by the staff hearing officer. The staff hearing officer's decision was appealed to the Planning Commission, so the Planning Commission would be the one to decide if they agree with staff's determination that it met the requirements of that exemption. So it is not within your purview today to state that it does not meet the exemption or require an environmental impact report, because that's not what CEQA would allow for us to do at this point.
Okay. Board Member Sherry, you have a question?
Oh, yeah, I had a different question. You mentioned that the project received a unanimous approval in the last hearing. What hearing was that, and which board?
And you might know the dates better. It was the concept review of the single-family.
Oh, our board?
Correct, yeah, it was just a conceptual review.
Oh,
And-
it wasn't an approval.
Correct, it wasn't a, it
Good.
wasn't, yeah.
I wanted to make, I didn't know what you were talking about, because our comments were just comments. So,
Correct.
okay, now I understand.
Okay.
No more
apologize
questions.
For not having I didn't know we were going to be talking about micrograms and what we're talking about, the single-family design
Every
board.
part of the scope is worth talking about, and I wish that it wasn't. I wish that we were only talking about design aesthetics, but unfortunately, we have to make findings now as part of project design approval. And so, do we have additional questions? Board Member Graffitti?
I do. I just want to, I believe myself and Chair Lewis were absent at the last meeting, and I did review the minutes. I just want to make sure, given all of the reviews that happened since then, were there changes to the grading? Were there changes to the tree mitigation plan? Can you speak to any changes that were made since our last hearing, March 10th?
No, there were no changes.
Okay, so all the board, the EHS, APCD, all the Creeks Commission, everyone that reviewed this, reviewed the plans that were proposed to us on March 10th, and no changes were made from those.
Correct. And planner can correct me if I'm wrong. We did actually add additional mitigation measures and conditions based upon the owner's discussions with the neighbors, in addition to things that were heard at the staff hearing officer meeting that did go through both APCD and EHS that went above and beyond their regulations, because they're very receptive to the feedback. There's a lot of transparency here. They've been consulting with the regulatory agencies and the neighbors, and again, going above and beyond. So I think the only difference that may be would be the conditions that have been applied to the project to be more prescriptive than what's required.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, it feels a little silly to be asking questions about trees and things like that when we're talking about potential cancer-causing elements and dust and all the grading that you're doing. But I do want to go back to the arborist report, because I see that about half of the trees proposed, and maybe I'm reading this incorrectly, are Laurus nobilis. Is that a hedge? And how many specimens and natives are being taken out, and are there the same amount being proposed to mitigate against that? Can you talk me through that, just because that is a finding that we have to make?
Yes, let me go ahead and pull up the aerial to start with your question in regards to what.
And you can scroll, I mean, I saw the tree plan up here, so even if you scroll up to the trees being proposed to replace, that could be helpful.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think what I was going to mention was just to get the context of the background. There's you can see at the top right the 2007 nursery operation, and then in 2011 there's really not much there, and it goes to 2014. Essentially, the eucalyptus that have been coming up incredibly invasive, and even at the STAC hearing they were mentioning that these are just really trees that don't have value as far as to being either heritage trees or specimen trees or habitat value.
As I'm referring more to the oak, and I know there's no oak specimen, or maybe it says that in the description, I think I might have read that somewhere. So you are mitigating eucalyptus with a mixture of oak, 2 different types of oak trees and Laurus nobilis. Am I understanding that?
Yeah, let me look at the replacement tree.
So these are all mitigating against eucalyptus.
Right.
Okay, got it.
There is one pine, which is what's in front of the single-family residence, that if in a picture, it's actually being hindered by a power line.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, Board Member Graffiti? No. Okay, Board Member Mosley?
I have just one question, is that when the staff hearing officer happened, and I understand that the public were there and the EHS and all the experts and professional answered questions, was there any report or like a documentation provided to the neighbors in order to summarize all their concerns with experts' resolutions?
Was there a report?
A report or a document, written document or a report provided when you guys talked with the neighbors and discussed, like a report that it's documented, that was provided to all the neighbors, that this is the summary of the experts or professional recommendation, that this is the mitigation plan that we're doing, this is the phasing and scheduling of the excavation?
Not an official report that I mean, we've communicated to the neighbors.
Just verbal communication?
Email.
Okay.
No, like PDF attachments from Steve Campbell with the details. Not since the meeting Wednesday. There hasn't been another report.
Okay, thank
Did you want to say something, Jason?
Yeah, the environmental documents are uploaded to a public database as well.
Okay.
Board Member Mosley, if I may, prior to the staff hearing officer hearing, there was a staff report prepared that does analyze the project for consistency with coastal policies, summarizes the technical reports that have been prepared, such as the reports that were reviewed by Environmental Health Services and Air Pollution Control District. And that report is intended to inform not only the decision maker, but the public. So if there is one document that sort of summarizes the entire project, it would be that staff report that was prepared.
So it is available to the public to go and find that, but it has not been sent to the neighbors.
So similar to design review hearings, that notice, there was a mail notice sent out with the QR code. That QR code would have taken them to the website with the staff report.
Great, thank you. And one clarification to the staff. So I have like a question about the findings as well, not only the health, safety, and welfare one, the good neighbor guidelines. I understand the language mentions that we have to, we should mention that the project generally complies or make this changes to generally comply with the good neighbor guidelines regarding privacy, landscaping, noise, and lighting. There's no referral to any environmental concerns. Is there something that it's, again, like an old remaining, like from like old, and it has not been added, or any other project that this has come up as a concern for the neighbors?
Chair, or Board Member Mosley, in short, no. The Good Neighbor Guidelines are indeed focused on privacy, landscaping, noise, and lighting. The impacts that you would see with something like a new house or an addition to a house or major, site work, a new pool, terracing, et cetera. The guidelines, and this is the single-family residence design guidelines we're talking about, do not address projects like this outright.
So that will be like irrelevant for us to making that findings, because this project doesn't have any like proposed building on it. And can we skip that when we make a motion?
No, you have to address each of the findings in your motion. I will say the Good Neighbor Guidelines do discuss things like talking to your neighbors and sharing out project details with neighbors. And it sounds like this applicant has done that.
That's why I'm asking, because the definition, the language that it's in our guidelines book is about, like, think about what your concerns would be if your next door neighbor were proposing, but it goes into like building a building or a new home. And that's why I brought it up, and I asked, that's,
And Board Member Moseley, just to add to your question, right? When we're looking at the Good Neighbor Guidelines, if we could look at page 75-N, number 37, Landscape Guidelines, it says in 37.1, review the SFDB guidelines, part 2, 2.1, screening plants, etc. And so it does say reference to ensure that projects are compliant with the landscaping guidelines in this yellow booklet. And in this yellow booklet, if you do go to the landscaping guidelines, it does include notes about ensuring that landscaping plans and grading and stormwater review are all compliant with the municipal code. And that's where we kind of get into conjunctions with the analysis that's done by the case planner, and then what's done with any other departments that are needed. In this case, it was EHS, but also with the environmental analyst. So that's how that specific F, Good Neighbor Guidelines, you can connect it kind of back to that initial CEQA findings that were already questioned a little bit. But that's the line
connection.
of connection.
Yes, thank you for the clarification. Okay.
Okay,
questions.
moving to comments then, and I'm curious to hear from the board. I feel like because I'm not an expert here, and that we're being asked to review this, that the only way I feel like I could is by making a motion of them having to respond to the higher guidelines, which would be the 25 micrograms requested by public comment. Otherwise, I feel like it's outside of a jurisdiction. I understand that there have been boards that have reviewed it. I think one of the things that I'm left with not understanding is why other jurisdictions require something higher, and why it seems like the main reason not to do it is potentially it taking longer, and I feel like that is worth it for the health. So I'm curious other board
I
members.
just want to be able to, you're asking to hear from other boards. So
Yeah,
just
yeah.
to jump in, one thing I heard from the applicant, and I'm not saying this is my point of view, I just want to have a healthy discussion, is the total length of time that this is happening, and the the grading is happening, and also the equipment to measure, it sounds like, is also different in our county. So what would be really helpful is to understand from an expert why Santa Barbara County is 50, and is that related to the equipment? Is there something else that we're not hearing? Because I know we're hearing 25, but it sounds like there's other things done in Santa Barbara County that hedge against that, which is the frequency of how they're measuring it, potential time that the dirt is open. So again, none of us being experts here, a question I would have to staff is, because this is hitting permit streamlining, do we have to make a decision today, or is the clock start from today to 60 days?
And can we continue the project?
Thank you, Board Member Graffiti. To answer your question, the Permit Streamlining Act timeline ended with the staff hearing officer decision. That was the main land use decision for the project. Therefore, this project is no longer under that strict timeline for an action, since the action was already done.
Got it.
Your options today are to approve the project, approve it with conditions, deny it, or continue it to hopefully a date certain, and we could work with the applicant team to get EHS and APCD officials to come to the hearing to provide input.
That'd be my recommendation.
Well,
Anyone else?
no matter how many professionals and reports I read, this is out of our purview.
I agree.
And the only reason that I would vote to continue it would be if it would be continuing it until a date that would allow us to make the Neighborhood Preservation Ordinance findings without item E in it, and, or remove it from our purview. So I cannot, I could
I
never
agree.
make a finding, and I would be ready to make a motion for denial without prejudice, because we cannot make the Neighborhood Preservation Ordinance finding because of a holdover condition in the form of item E that shouldn't even be in there, in my opinion. That would be the only way that I could make any kind of an action today.
I agree. I can't make that finding.
Ever? Or
Not in this meeting, at least, so.
do you, I want to understand from Vice Chair Sherry is if we were to make a request for other people to come back who are the quote-unquote experts in this area, it sounds like what you're saying is you may not ever be able to get to a place where you could make that finding, or that you'd feel comfortable to make that finding.
No, I can't, because I don't think that finding is appropriate to our board.
I would say that in this meeting, without the experts, like, the first step is I can't make that finding today without the expert being here and all the neighbors being convinced and, like, provided with, like, experts. I understand that staff has the report that public can review, but it seems like from the public that we're hearing, all the neighbors are not convinced.
It's not,
And
it's
so that's
not
like.
even the neighbors agree on what the actual number should be, because the applicants are okay with a number and some of the other neighbors are not okay with the number. It's out of our purview. This is completely out of our purview.
Talking about that number, even it's like bringing it up in our motion about the number, we're not the experts to even like recommend that as like, because like the neighbors are not convinced with the reports, technical reports. We put a condition that, like, let's go with more restrictive approach and not a standard requirement code. This is not part of our, it's not a design idea,
It's
or
out of
it's
my-
not
out of our pay grade.
architecture. So.
I just,
Which is nothing, but.
I think then we've made it on every other motion we've made, and obviously this is more sensitive, but it's not one we've ever really considered on other projects that could also pose health safety concerns. So, and then I would also add at the previous meeting, and this is, I guess, moving forward, we'll be thoughtful about minutes, but I think our last item in the minutes made was around it following proper required protocol in safety, and it did go through all of our city's proper channels. And so now we're saying, because of outside comments that we're getting, which is helpful, we're not now trusting the process it's already gone through. So I just want to, I want to make sure that, I know we're saying it's not in our purview, but at the same time, it's gone through all of the checks that we were required at our last minutes. And if,
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Board
Just
Member
because
Heidi.
we made a motion in the last hearing, and I was the one that made the motion, and I was put on the spot because I didn't know enough about the project, and I still don't feel like I know enough about the project, and I never felt that it was in our purview. And I've never felt comfortable with that finding. I've never felt comfortable saying it, and this just brings it up to a head, that it needs to be taken away. It needs to be reworded. And you've seen me cringe stating that MPO finding on every project. I'm never comfortable making it, and I think it needs to go away sooner rather than later.
And I'm the person who seconded that motion, and we continued this project to the full board because we thought that we're going to have more convincible reports and everything that, or expertise in the meeting that will convince the public, because we knew that we're going to make all of these findings, which is now still feeling that we can't make it.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion for denial without prejudice because the board feels that this project feels that they cannot make the MPO finding, because the board cannot make the MPO findings regarding the health, safety, and welfare, and that they are appropriately protected and preserved. The board cannot make that finding.
I'll second.
Chair Lewis and the motion maker, because I just want to ensure that if you do go through with a denial, I understand that we stated while in the discussion to your reasoning why for the denial. Is it possible to add more detail into the motion so that if this does go to appeal, that the appellant does have some content to write the report on, and for staff to write a report on, and also for the planning commission to chew on a little bit?
Thank you, Chair. To clarify, you would need to go through each one of the findings and discuss each one individually, including the grading findings.
Is that a question?
That's an ask.
What's the question?
You need to revise your motion to go through each one of the neighborhood preservation findings.
We're not going through the findings. We're denying the project because we
I
cannot
think
make the findings.
the point is the only finding that can't be made, and so that's the one that I think we can comment on, which is what Board Member Sherry said. But she can elaborate on the reason for denial for number 5, if that's what staff
I
is
thought I was
requesting.
perfectly clear that the reason that
No, you were perfectly clear. My ask is that you have to speak to each one of these findings as part of your motion. And so if you can make finding A, if you can make finding B, make finding C, you can't make finding E.
I've never
we
made
just need you to
MPO
list
findings
those
on a
out.
project that I'm denying because we're not making the findings.
Yeah, it
can't
does
make
say
the
if
findings.
approving, make the findings on our
If we're
diagram.
approving, we're making the findings. If we're denying, we're not making findings.
So here, I'll give this to you. One of the things it does say, though, is what the project needs to change in order to be consistent.
If I'm going to have to go through all of the MPO findings and make comments on each one of them, then I'd like to withdraw my motion.
Sure, just give us one moment while we refer to the guidelines to make sure that we're all following the proper process and procedure, and we get everything recorded for the record, right?
It doesn't come here.
I know.
That's like,
It could be their choice. I know, I see.
yes, this is like when you end
Project to now. Let's consider an or. Yeah, so it just says it's just state the reason for a project denial in the motion for denial, but it doesn't say that you have to go through the motion.
I'd like to just refer staff to the worksheet with our instructions that if you deny the project without prejudice, that's full stop.
Correct.
And
We're-
then it says
yeah.
if continuing or if approving, you're making the findings, and it continues to state those findings.
Yeah.
Yeah, my apologies, Board and Chair. I was incorrect there. All you need to do is state the reason for the denial and the specific finding that could not be met. So your motion suffices.
Thank you.
My motion stands, and I call the question.
Okay.
There was a second on the motion. I seconded, so we can take a vote.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Board Member Moslehy?
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti?
No.
Board Member Sherry? Vice Chair Sherry, excuse me. Chair Lewis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. And to move on just want to announce the appeal period for this decision. So if the applicant or any member of the public wants to appeal the decision made here today, which is the denial finding today, you have 10 days to do so, and send me an email or send the staff secretary an email to get in touch with me so I can let you know what that process is like. I believe the show appeal process has already begun. So anyways, I think that's
And
it.
Chair, before we adjourn, if we could just have the person who voted no state the reason for the no vote.
I would have liked to see it continued. I would have liked to see experts speak on the matter so that the applicants can at least follow the process. I think with us voting no, we're just saying we're never going to be able to make that finding. I think I would have been able to, with more input, again, from experts and maybe even considering what all the neighbors were recommending, I would have liked to continue it to see if I could have gotten there.
Thank you. And Chair Lewis, that was our last item.
Okay, thank you. With that, our meeting has ended.
All right. Thank you, everybody.